This episode is sponsored by Isle of Man TT3 Ride on the Edge. The game is available on Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch and Steam. Now you're never going to catch me riding the Isle of Man TT, although I cannot stop playing this game. If you would like to do the same, go check out the link in the description below. Now kick back, relax and enjoy this episode. Today I have with me my mate, washed up motorcycle racer, I've been dying to say that, and office furniture salesman Mason Law, welcome.
Weight carrier of Danny Buchcan.
No, definitely not that.
I was fed up with people calling this a profession. Like, in my opinion, you're a professional when you get paid.
When you get paid.
And I remember Sofoglu coming past me for the first time in Qatar. And they come past, yeah, and I just remember this lighting up. Obviously, it was the fuel, excess fuel coming out the exhaust. So I put duct tape. I remember it, silver duct tape over it, and I was like, right, I just want to get my knee down.
I know,
like,
I did
it
have
happens.
3 crashes at you anyway. It's
Yeah.
about something else.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Awkward. And he was like, oh, that's a shame, Geese. He said, I thought you was going to be Danny's little protege. And it literally rung, like, I was like, oh, okay. I think it was that same person. I was like, oh, like, have you worked out, like, your fuel per lap? They was like, no, it won't run out, though. I've topped it up. I've always said I'm very fortunate. I've got such a nice life away from bike racing. I love riding bikes. That is the be-all and end-all for it for me. I love riding bikes.
Boom, boom, Danny Buchcan. What a ride this is, and it is on!
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of Pushing the Limit podcast with me, Danny Buchcan. Today I have with me my mate, washed up motorcycle racer, I've been dying to say that, and office furniture salesman Mason Law, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to London, looking very smart today.
Thank you very much.
Why are you looking so smart?
Trying to tee this in with a meet.
We've literally got a meeting straight after. This is me fully smarted up, straight out of. I'm not going to actually promote the brand of clothing because
They don't sponsor you.
they don't sponsor me. Anyway, let's get down to it, mate. I'm sure there's people dying to know the story and the history behind the journey you've been on. Obviously, we've been on. We've literally done the whole thing together, so I don't actually need that many notes, but I have got a few. So let's start off. Where did it all start for you? Motorcycle racing, because you've had a good career. I know you're obviously not racing at the minute, but your career, you've had a lot of success in it, haven't you? Really?
Yeah, well, yeah. I guess to sound very vain, but yeah, I guess over the years achieved quite a lot, and motocross, road racing. Would like to have achieved more. May still achieve more.
We say road racing, but you mean short circuit.
What did I say?
Road racing.
Oh,
no,
okay,
but we. I think from the motocross side, we always say road racing, but
yeah.
it is short circuit.
But yeah, you're not finding me on the actual roads.
TT next.
No, but yeah, we started back on a rugby field, on a Pee-wee 50 with my dad running around after me. No stabilisers. I actually think I rode that before I rode a BMX without stabilisers. But yeah, just completely found the love for literally putting my feet up on the foot pegs and just rolling forward. And honestly, like, genuinely, the rest is history. I very vague. I'm not the best with memory on stuff, but memories back then, I do genuinely remember being on that rugby field, like riding around, splashing through puddles, just honestly having the time of my life.
And what about, was your dad into it? I actually thought about this the other day. Your dad did race, didn't he?
Yeah, it kind of was in the family. So my dad's dad, my granddad, he did scrambling, and my dad did scrambling, as it was called back in the day, so motocross. To be fair, like, Dad was pretty good. Like, he didn't...
I can imagine it.
He
as well.
didn't, like, it's never something he's ever really been like, oh, mate, yeah, I was good. Do you know what I mean? But he, there's loads of photos and stuff up in the loft, you know, the old black and white photos and faded out photos where they were that long ago. But
hang on, he ain't that old.
Yeah, no, he's quite old though. So yeah, no, so he did it, and naturally just sort of got me a bike. I guess it's not something that my dad's never ever pushed it on me. I know a lot of bike dads, you know, it's like, oh yeah, my son's going to do that. It wasn't like that at all. I mean, if my mum had it her way, I wouldn't be anywhere near a bike.
Still to this day.
Still to this day, yeah. You know, when I said I didn't have a contract for this year, I think she wanted to host a little party.
She did. You weren't invited.
Yeah, it's she's so supportive, but not at the same time. She hates this sport. And I get it. I'm not a parent yet, and I'll never be able to see it from a mother's input. But you know, it is dangerous, isn't it? So, but yeah, no, it's in the family.
No, and it's funny because obviously you say like a mother's input. Like I'm obviously a father, and I wouldn't even. But I think being a mum is so different, isn't it? Like being a mum's so much different. I think the mums would look at it like Steph even talks about it now. She's like, nah. No, I said, but what about if Brody wants to do it or May want to do it? Obviously, we just have to support him in it. No, not letting him. I was like, well, let's just go and do it illegal anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing as well. Like with anything I've ever done, my dad's always been like, look, I'll never tell you not to do something, but like obviously common sense and stuff like that. But I mean, honestly, I think when he saw the smile I had on my face, and it was like, obviously back then it wasn't, you know, I was on a field, so it wasn't like I was having to wait for sessions. And obviously when I grew up, got on the 50, you know, we'd be over at Chippenham and Wild Tracks as it's called now, and I'd be like, oh, Dad, you know, can I get out? You know, oh, it's not your turn yet, boy. You know what I mean? Like, oh, wait, okay. Like, literally, it's all I wanted to do. And I think back now, and I'm like, even if it was absolutely humping it down with rain or snowing, it was like, I just couldn't wait to get out. And now I'm like, obviously gone a bit soft as I got older. Like, throughout the winter, it's like, oh, a bit cold. Yeah, mate, your hands get a bit cold, do you know what I mean? But yeah, just honestly, I think it's that love. Like, anyone that rides a bike, whether it be, honestly, like a Harley Davidson on the road or you know, just anything you can get on, even I guess these e-bikes now, you literally, as soon as you put your feet on the foot pegs, you obviously you turn the throttle and you go forward. It's such a, like an unnatural sensation that it's just so enjoyable.
Mega, innit?
Yeah.
That, so now's probably a good time. So your dad got me into motorbike racing, so I actually owe probably a lot to your dad for my career, really, because he got me into it with, well, he said to my dad, go and start it.
Yeah, well, like a business relationship back then, wasn't it? And it, like, I didn't know you then. I would have been probably 3 or 4.
Yeah, well, I was 6, just 6, I think, when I first got a bike,
And like Dad says now, doesn't he? He tells me the story, and he was like, oh, you know, I think you were going to get into go-karting, weren't you?
We tried go-karting and football, didn't work out.
No. And I think Dad said to your dad, "Come on, you get Danny down to Latchington, which is local." He said, you know, and you were like, "Oh." Dad was like, "Well, you know, you can come watch him crashing." You were like, "Oh, yeah."
Perfect.
Like red flag straight away, hey. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's a small world, but obviously the small things that happened back then have obviously generated a lot of success for yourself, hey?
Yeah. But then obviously we talk through the years. Obviously you had a successful motocross career. You was probably on the brink, obviously for juniors all the way up, but you was actually on the brink of being able to turn professional, weren't you? Because you done that first year we had to qualify for the British, and you had a really good year. At this point I was already riding tarmac, weren't I? Quite a few years I was already riding for Nick, weren't I? MSS. So that would have been 2010.
Yeah, and 2011 was my last year at motocross. And that was, so obviously did sort of 50cc, 65s. 65s weren't a great sort of category for me. Small wheel.
You started getting better and better, didn't you? And then you got on the big bike.
Yeah, and did like the Elite Youth Cup with like the Red Bull Pro Nationals as it was called back then. And then a lot of the Supercross stuff throughout my junior career. Or arena cross, as it was here, and absolutely love the arena cross.
I love that, yeah.
You know, I remember I think it was 2008, don't quote me on that, might have been 09, but at the O2, Dad had been away, we'd been away on holiday for quite a few weeks, got back and he was like, right, come on, let's go and do it. And we'd already signed up and run a brand new bike in throughout the day. And there were long days, the arena crosses, like you would start at like 8 o'clock and the main event, if you made it, was like sometimes like 11 o'clock at night. And we ran the bike in, got tangled up in qualifying, had to go to the LCQ, the last chance qualifier, qualified literally last in the LCQ, like head had gone. Last gate pick, literally got the whole shot, led nearly the whole race, got cross-rutted on the last lap. And it was like the one that got away, I could have had like, it was like a year's worth of Vans shoes, and it was like, wow, like how cool would that have been?
For a kid, that's
But it was never intended to be professional. Like nothing was ever intended to be professional. And then like moved up to the big bikes on well, I say big bikes, 250s back then, and that was a year that kind of happened by mistake because I was meant to be doing the nationals first year on the 250, but the team I rode for, which was Colchester Kawasaki, in 2011, obviously that's where it was come quite close again, well, and that's where our relationship, I guess, kind of sort of revitalised itself. But you were doing the superbikes with MSS, who were in the same building. I was doing motocross with the team manager, a guy called Chris Endine at the time. Fantastic year. But it was a year that happened by mistake because I was meant to be doing the Nationals, but the Eastern Centre Championship started earlier than the Nationals. So we went and done one, I was a junior in the junior category, and I think I won the first round. And it was like, oh, okay, well, kind of points leader now. And we didn't really do many nationals. We literally did the Eastern Centre Championship, and honestly, it was one of my favourite years I've ever had riding a motorbike. We had such a great community within the team. We literally parked up, and we had like the big marquee. We had one of the riders, Luke. His nan used to come. She used to make like the best Victoria sponge cake you ever do. Stuart, my teammate at the time, like his family all used to be there, set it up. Mark Lee, the whole shebang. Dad would be there, like proper
family,
family like run team. Obviously, Chris Endine was the guy that sort of run the team for Colchester at the time. And then that was the transition to Superbike, I guess you could say, because I always remember the motocross shop was upstairs. Nick MSS was upstairs, round the corner, and I remember he said, "Oh, you were trying to push me in it for years."
My dad kept saying to your dad, "You need to come over here. You need to come over here. You need to come over here. Like you need to come short circuit." But I think you should just go back, because Eastern Centre. I don't know if people listening know, but Eastern Centre, you have to score a certain amount of points in Eastern Centre, and then you can get promoted to go and do the MX, obviously the MX2 British Championship, which is the equivalent to our BSB, isn't it? And that was something, and that was quite an achievement, because you managed to do that quite quickly, didn't you? And you would have qualified to go professional motocross next year.
Yeah, and that was always the plan. Literally, that was always the plan. Qualify, got my points to become expert, which is what you needed at the time. I don't know if you need it now, but you needed it at the time. Did a couple of, throughout the year as well, they did like these mixed races where the youth would, in the youth, I think you had like A, B, C, D, and A being the highest, won the category of A juniors, but they did these mixed races where you'd go in with the 450s, or the experts, so they could be 250s, they could be 450s. A lot of them were 450s, and they were great. Like you'd be going around Blacksall pits, quite a sand, quite a heavy sand track, fantastic circuit. But circuit, that sounds very like Superbike, doesn't it? But like track, on the 250, like literally wringing the neck off it to try and keep up the experts on the 450s, and had some amazing races. But yeah, that was unfortunately like that was the end of the motocross career. Really, it was like quite abrupt.
Yeah, and then you started. Obviously, you went right back to the start, as you have to in any career change. That was, wasn't it?
Yeah, like your dad was obviously pushing like mad, so we went and bought an Aprilia Super Teen, my only ever sort of two-stroke. Your friends Jesse.
Yeah,
Jesse Jones, and which I think actually was your old bike.
I think it might have been my old bike originally. Yeah.
And then we went to Cartagena, didn't we?
Hardly
we did
used.
Because we used to always do one lady owner. We used to do motocross trips, didn't we? And we sort of teed this one trip up, so we would do. I think it was 3 days Cartagena, 3 days motocross. And I absolutely loved it. I had a set of Leon Hunt's RLNS leathers, full kangaroo.
Still borrowed anything just to get by, just to get on the track.
Literally. And like he'd already got the knee sliders scuffed up, so I put duct tape. I remember it, silver duct tape over it, and I was like, right, I just want to get my knee down at Cartagena. And literally the last day, I'd given up on getting my knee down. It weren't happening. And the last day through the first sector through the chicane, I was like, wow.
Wow, I went through that far too quick.
Yeah, and I can't really remember now, but basically we come back and Nick Morgan said, "Oh, how was that, geese?" And I was like, "Oh, it was mega." And he was like, "Oh, well, what are you thinking?" And I was like, "Well, I'm doing MXY2 next year, motocross again." Like you said, got qualified for it. We're going to carry on with Colchester Kawasaki. And I remember him literally this was like all a passing conversation walking down the stairs, and he was like, "Oh, that's a shame, geese." He said, "I thought he was going to be Danny's little protege," and it literally rung like I was like, "Oh, okay." And obviously, you'd see the super bikes. It was Gary Mason, Stuart Easton at the time.
Yeah, that was
And like the bikes, it was like, wow, like that's a.
And we was always around the bikes, weren't we? Because we was always at MSS, always at the the HQ where the race bikes were prepared. Yeah. So we was always there, weren't we? And obviously, at the time, I was racing stock thousands. And then obviously, this is the conversation with Nick.
Yeah, and I
planted the seed.
He did, and it was like literally planting that seed, and it was like a real like last minute swap. And basically, Bemsey were hosting an open day at Brands Hatch at the Kentagon. And Kawasaki had just released this Ninja 250, and it was then going to be the new Ninja 250 Cup. So I think your dad said, "Look, go along, go and have a look." And I remember going along, and I was like, "Wow!" And it was such a different environment. Like you could wear nice trainers, like they weren't getting covered in mud.
The bikes are clean. Yeah, everything's clean. Your levers stay clean. Bearing in mind if you don't smash the thing up.
Yeah, I mean, like you've got quite a few dirty sets of levers.
I have one behind me.
Yeah, I just had a little look at that.
That's only the one.
Although Taz has also got a scuffed helmet.
I know,
like,
I did
it happens.
3 crashes that year anyway. Let's talk about something else.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Awkward. But so, and it like being in there, I was like, wow, like this bike's a proper machine. And then like sitting on it, and a guy come over, he's like, "Oh, do you mind if I get some pictures of you on it?" And I was like, "Well, you can do." And he's like, "Oh, yeah." He said, oh yeah, like they'll be in like magazine. I don't remember what magazine. I think I got it at home.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, no, they'll be in this magazine. Like Bemsey, Kawasaki UK, Bemsey are launching this new thing. I was like, all right. I was like, wow. Like, and we come away from that, and it was like, this is proper. And Dad was like, oh, you know, do you fancy giving it a go? And I said, like, I do. And I genuinely, and I honestly, I'm not just saying this, but I said to Dad, I was like, I do, but like, it's so expensive. Like, so expensive. And obviously, like, I guess my dad got hooked in a bit. Like, he'd seen people show a bit of interest in me. And I remember him saying, like, oh, mate, look, like, if you had a choice, if money wasn't an option, what would you do? And I was like, oh, I think I'd like to give it a go, Dad. It's like proper put him in a bad situation. And I,
sell everything.
Daddy, I want to do this.
Yeah,
And he weren't like that. But he was like genuinely like, would you like to give it a go? And we did. And we joined Bemsey, and another one of my best years racing. Such a fantastic community, such a great club. And they really took me under their wing, I think, because of the relationship with you. Obviously, you.
Well, it's just a mega club to be a part of, weren't it?
And you having that relationship with them back in the day. So they sort of took me under their wing. They knew that we didn't know what to do. Like my first race, Snetterton, we went out, right? And I think I finished second in my first ever race. There was a young guy that come across who didn't end up. I don't think the championship allowed him to do it in the end. In the end, because he'd had racing experience at the time. It was meant to be like a rookie thing. Yeah. So I finished second to him, and I was like, wow, like this was cool, Snetterton. And someone come over and they were like, oh, like what tyre pressures you running? Dad was like, what do you mean?
Excuse me.
Yeah, he was like, well, just whatever, like Rod Harwin at the time. He's like, well, whatever Rod set them to. Like, no, like, what did you set them, like hot pressures? And Dad was like, I haven't.
45 PSI.
No, what we'd done, Dad had, like, we'd got the new tyres put on, Rod Harwin had done it, but obviously they'd popped the bead, right? Well, obviously you meant to set your tyre pressures, didn't they? We didn't know that was a thing. It was like, well, what do you mean? Like, the professionals done the tyres, like that's perfect, right? Like honestly, and I went out and I done this race with like tyre pressures. We had no idea, like rock solid. Luckily, it didn't crash. And also the other thing is as well, I think it was that same person was like, oh, like have you worked out like your fuel per lap? That was like, no, he won't run out though. I've topped it up. He'd brimmed it. He'd brimmed the bike. I had tyres with like tyre pressures that were just ludicrous, and it was like proper baptism of fire. And like Dad that always had such experience in motocross, like and good experience too. It would always help someone out, especially at club racing. He'd be like, oh, you know, have you tried this? I'm getting arm pump. Like Dad had a bit like quite good like background knowledge there, but like road racing, he was like, I have no idea. Not a clue. And that series went obviously Bemsey, but we had like a round at BSB, which was like round 2, but it was round 2, but the first point scoring round. The Snetterton was like non-point scoring or something like that.
Was that Snetterton where I smashed myself up with the chicane? Remember, I got took out and the bike was thick mud.
No, so this was Bemsey. Snetterton was Bemsey.
Oh, I didn't know if I was on a club race there. Oh, no, I don't think I would have been. No, I think that was the one when you come to watch that.
Well, I remember, so that was when I was doing motocross. So that was like a few years before. I had a broken knee.
Yeah, that was it. I do remember that now, yeah.
And I think you were on the 400, you just got on the 600. Literally come along to watch you race. And it was absolutely humping down with rain. And both times you come back absolutely covered in mud.
I got took out of the chicane. Matey crashed and just took me out. I was so dirty.
But I remember it, and I was like, he's crashed. But I was like, where is he now then? Because obviously motocross, you crash, you get back up and you go again.
Yeah, you can't there.
You just come back, mate, absolutely covered in mud. And obviously that was where I like met Paul Neal, who like turned out to be like a real lifelong friend. Yeah. Who's like, his dad was your mechanic at the time.
Paul was my mechanic as well, and I raced against him.
Yeah, and obviously back then they were both racing on the 400s. Like,
Big Kev.
Yeah, Big Kev, yeah, what a great like group of people you meet. Yeah. That was going back a bit, so that was then. But yeah, like the first point scoring round, BSB, Brands Hatch for this Ninja 250 Cup went out, and I think I won both races, and like by quite a significant margin as well. And the series was sponsored by an insurance firm back then that sponsored Shaky's team, PBM. So there was a bit of a tie there, and it was like, wow, like all these garages, and it was like the lights. It was like being in Hollywood, and it was just like there was so much more like opportunity. It was like, motocross was great, and I still like I've got such a passion for it. Like I don't ride as much. I haven't ridden for a couple of years, which is sad. But obviously, like priorities and growing up now, and like having to pay for everything yourself. Like I think that's the biggest thing as well. Like
I hate motocross now because I hate cleaning my bike after.
Yeah, like they just did that, didn't they? Like
in my garage.
Yeah, it would be like muddy as hell, like freezing cold, and I literally would get home and like run in and like eat. Yeah, like Dad was out there busting his balls off, like jet washing the bike. Like he loved it, and I think it's the memories like that.
It's the bonding, isn't it, as well? Like you go and racing with your son. Like thinking of it now, like me and Brody, it'd be mega. Like you go and spending the weekend with your son. It's like. It's what like Dad's dream of, really, isn't it? You know.
Honestly, like the quality time we had was great, and then like obviously we got the motorhomes. So it'd be weekends away, and you know, like we'd park up all the way up to BSB, and it's like, all right, should we put the kettle on?
Yeah.
I'll have a cup of tea and
Me
some biscuits.
notoriously coming into your motorhome and dumping and just leaving it, and your
Yeah.
dad just being fuming about
Yeah,
it.
like before we even set the cassette up, we literally turned up at a track. Obviously, you have to set the cassette
Why would
toilets
I
up.
borrowed your toilet though? The audacity of it. Why would I not just use mine? We always had a motorhome.
No, it was at Tony Moto was the track at the time.
Don't
wasn't it?
remember.
And we pulled up. We had a converted Sprinter. You just jumped in, didn't you? He was like,
Dad-
we need to- I don't think Dad was in there. I was like, all right, mate, yeah,
Just
whatever.
crack
Like,
on.
just left the log and just
kids
left,
do.
mate, and it stunk. I remember it. I don't ever got a very good memory, as I said earlier, but I do remember that.
It just cracks me up. And your dad, yeah, just a notorious, just a dumping in people's motorhomes.
Always. And we broke the door. Do you remember?
Yeah, fighting each other on
in
the way to
Spain.
Spain.
So Dad and Jim would
Yeah.
drive out in that same converted
We used to have the
Sprinter
inverter, didn't we? And used to play the PlayStation all the way
with
to
the
Spain.
ballets,
Yeah, yeah.
the hay
We
bales,
used to play the PlayStation the whole way there, didn't we? Like
Yeah.
MX vs ATV, and that was it.
and Grand Theft Auto.
And Grand Theft Auto.
Really responsible parents that they were.
Shit parents, mate. They must have been.
And I think you locked me in the toilet, and then I was trying to get out, and we literally snapped the door off the hinges.
Yeah,
didn't
that
we?
weren't good. Yeah,
Kaylee was in the front, your
Yeah.
sister, catching
Yeah.
flies. Still got
But
a
that's
video
what it
of
used to be. We used to just go motocross. We used to.
Yeah.
It just used to be a mega thing, didn't it?
That
Like
was the
my dad
holidays,
was
wasn't
chairman of the championship. Your dad then became like chairman of the championship, and it was just always. And then obviously our dads got into business together, and it's just always been a thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's funny
Yeah.
how life has been.
And it literally just ramped
Literally
up.
cannot get rid of you.
No.
And now we're business partners.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk about that after. But yeah, so then obviously you went into yeah, so you done that year.
Did a Ninja 250
Yeah,
Cup.
where'd you end up? Did you
I
win it?
won, yeah, won the championship, and it was like, wow, like what an opportunity. And like Kawasaki, I had the link with Kawasaki back because of the motocross, and they were going to support me in the motocross. And then we'd spoke to them like prior to the move, and we were like, oh, like would you be able to support us like doing this? And they were like, well, we kind of can't because it's a one make series. It was Kawasaki series, like, and I get it now. Like they couldn't be biased. They couldn't just give someone a
Favouritism,
bike.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
but they said, but if you do it, the winner of that year won a 600. So fortunate, like not lucky, like fortunate, so fortunate. Like we had such a great year, won the championship, won the 600, and at that time you were doing the Chris Walker race school, so I did a couple of them to get my first dabble on the 600. And at that point, Chris Walker was looking to run a rider in stock 600.
Oh shit, I remember that now.
He'd
yeah.
just run Lee Jackson. Lee,
Yeah,
I think, won the
yeah.
championship,
Yeah.
moving on to stock 1000 or whatever he went to, and got picked up. And
It's
it was
like
like
timing, isn't it? It's like
yeah,
perfect
yeah.
timing.
So,
yeah.
and I
Really.
think a lot of this game is, I think a lot of it's right place, right time, right face, right passport, especially like World
Especially GP,
Championships.
you know,
And had obviously first experiences on the 600. Loved it. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And this is fast.
Was that before or after you broke your collarbone showing off into the hairpin? at Mallory?
No, yeah. So this was before. This was
Oh,
my first
yeah.
experience. Yeah, so that was before the showing off. I wasn't there yet. You know,
You
I
have to
didn't
pay
have
for the
ability.
damage of the bike.
I don't think I did. Well, I would have done anyway, but I don't think Dad did either. So, in fairness, shout out to Chris.
Yeah, he's actually going to pull that invoice up now. If
He
listens to
will,
this.
yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
But no, did the Chris Walker race school,
Yeah.
a couple of times, and qualified as such, and obviously, so won the bike with Kawasaki. Chris run me that year in 600 straight into BSB, like proper baptism of
That
fire.
is a big old jump though, really, because you've gone from like motocross to like a club championship that done a couple of BSB races to BSB Superstock 6, which is mental.
Yeah, and I was very fortunate with it, like Chris Walker in your corner, like
Yeah.
serious, like
Yeah.
And it's really bad because I guess I sort of took it for granted because my heroes were motocrossers, still are. Anyone at BSB or anything, I didn't know. I knew you.
No, we didn't know, did we? We just grew up.
No,
and
I
just-
knew you, and
yeah.
I knew Gary Mason because he had the same surname as my first name.
Yeah.
Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
You know, and they were rock stars. And obviously then you get to know like Shaky Byrne, like winning BSB and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, okay, like, yeah. So we had an awning made and we run as like the Chris Walker race school. Had an enjoyable year, but results-wise, like a bit naive, I guess, like serious talent there.
Where did you end up?
Don't know. I don't know that. I genuinely don't know position-wise that first year. But it took a couple of years for me in stock. So I did that year. End of that year, you were working with a guy called Andrew Pitt, where a lot of people in the racing community will know. He was sort of helping you
Got
race
me in
weekends.
check. Crew chief who used to cook for me, make me
Yeah.
eat the right food because I
Um,
probably didn't eat at the time.
Yeah, actually, and tell a lie, actually, Andrew come in the year before. So Andrew did come in the year on the 250 because we did a wild card at Donington Park World Superbike. You were on stock 1000 with Nick, and my bike at that point was on the 250 was Colchester Kawasaki MSS supported. So Andrew was working for you, and that was when Andrew got introduced to Dad. And as I said, Dad had no experience in road racing.
No.
So he really, like, in the end was like, Andrew, like, can you
Please
help
help,
my son? And that was when the relationship with Andrew Pitt started. So yeah, in fairness, I had Chris Walker in my corner and Andrew Pitt, like seriously.
World
like,
Supersport champion twice.
Yeah, and like...
Yeah, it's mad.
I didn't have a clue at the time. I didn't know. Like my dad, we were driving to Cadwell Park once. My dad was like Andrew, like, don't take this the wrong way. So I don't actually know what you've done, like who you are. And Andrew said today, he was like, do you know what? Like, I love it that way. That's great. Like, it weren't an insult. And we've built such a great family relationship now with Andrew and the kids and the family out in Italy. And that's like the Premier Helmet sponsorship. That's where that came from. The RST link with, I've been in Premier Helmets and RST since day dot. Because of Andrew,
Pete
and
paved the way, didn't he?
With Johnny Towers at RST, like I have been so well looked after, and there's so many people to thank throughout my career that have got me to where I am now, through the support of these people. So Chris and Andrew, and I had a bit of a my 600 career was relatively steady, and then I rode 4 RST Trick Moto it was at the time. In 600s, and I think I grabbed the podium at Snetterton. It was like, oh, okay, like cool.
Red and white bike. That was a nice bike. That
Like that year, you had like Andy Reid, Carl Ride, and I think Carl went on to win the championship. Top 3 had to move up, and like the following year, it was we always run ourselves. And a guy called Paul Russo was like, oh, he come up and was like, look, I run. It was AP Kawasaki at the time.
Yeah.
I'm going to run my own team. Would you like to be a part? And like the problem is, like my dad had bankrolled everything, and I didn't. Again, naive, didn't know this. Like, what do you mean? Like,
you don't know it. You don't know. You just rock up. Your mum, your
go
dad,
to school,
just
and
go
then
racing.
go riding on the weekends. Like, what's money? Like, and I've never ever been. I'd never had pocket money. Never been one to be like, oh, Dad, can I have money? Like, I did BMX and stuff, relatively inexpensive. Like, obviously the bike would cost money, but that was Christmas presents or whatever, not to be overlooked, but like got bought for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Didn't see the transactions happen.
But I don't think you do as a kid, do you? You just think,
and I'm so grateful for that. But like the Russo thing was like, oh, like we think Mason could do well next year. We'd like him to ride for the team. But it was like money up front.
And you got to pay for the privilege.
Got to pay for the ride, right? Which was one of the best moves we did, like bike racing, road racing, superbike racing wise. But that was that's a lot of money. But I didn't realise he'd spent so much money. But because he was spending it, and he had the business with your dad as well, that again I didn't realise pretty much his involvement was to pay for racing.
Yeah.
In the end, and like his life was on hold, mate. Like nothing. It was me and him, like bike racing. And I think as well, like mum, dad split up at that time as well. Like and it was my dad's out. And it took me away from all that happening, and everything's turned out how it has now, which is great. Everyone's happy. But obviously back then, like I was just bike racing.
Yes.
Literally did school. I didn't concentrate enough at school. Wasn't interested at school, which is a shame. Like obviously in hindsight should have done better. Like would like to have done better. Would like to have absorbed more, but
especially for our life now.
Yeah.
I wish I did certain things.
Yeah. Like it's a crash course now, isn't it? Like with obviously our business now, but it's like just did motocross. Like just live for the weekends. My school were very lucky going back to motocross. I was very lucky with school because they really supported me. They'd let me have the occasional day to go riding, but I had to have a tutor. So a tutor would pick me up and I'd do. And obviously like that helped me with my GCSEs and stuff. So supportive. So obviously like big shout out to King John School for back then. Out. Yeah. And like the Evening Echo for getting the write-ups and stuff like that. He was like, wow.
That's Eric, isn't it? Was that Eric doing it? Yeah. Eric still going now, still going strong, Eric. He's on the old write-ups.
Yeah. So did all that and stuff like that, which was great. But sort of lost track of where we are now. But
you was at the Trick Moto,
Trick Moto, Russo Racing, pay
Russo
up front.
Racing, pay.
And then, funnily enough, sort of come back together with Paul Neal, who was your mechanic, stuff like that. He was my mechanic.
Yeah.
And it was like, what a great year. Like, we did, like, Spanish testing. Like, wow.
Oh,
like,
I love them days.
It wasn't just track
so
days.
sick.
Like, we'd go there, and I had Andy White from Kay's Olins was like, right, we're going to try this. We're going to go long with the bike. We're going to go short with the bike, high and low. Like,
see what you like.
Like, we're like, this is actually testing. And did, like, Cartagena did Almeria. Fell in love with Almeria, got a really great relationship with Dave Garcia now in Almeria. Like, how that transpired was great. Like, would let me go out there and ride for the years to come.
Like Tito.
Yeah. Like,
genuinely,
genuinely the same. Like, I was actually riding Tito's old bike, the Honda, which not a lot of people knew about at the time because, in a sense, not to grasp myself up, but like, it was Kawasaki contracted. Yeah. But it would, like, I would rather no one was there. So it'd be the
but it
mornings.
didn't matter if you was riding it. You weren't promoting it. So
Wasn't
it's not
promoting
really
it. It was mornings. It was
such,
occasional lunchtimes when he built the new Andalusia circuit. I just have to have a marshal up there with me, and I could go and ride the track. Like, again. How lucky was I?
I know.
Like it was great.
Yeah.
Massively took it for granted, and would go and stay in Mahaka for a couple of months. But we're getting ahead. But Stock 600, So I think I won like the first 4 races in a row, and it was like setting lap records. Like they'd built me such a good bike.
Yeah, and you just felt comfortable in that environment.
So comfortable. Had a great suspension technician, a great mechanic, a great team manager. Like Paul was, if anyone got to ride for Paul, like they were lucky because he was such a good guy. Like wasn't there for the money, didn't want to rinse people's pockets. Like there's too many people out there.
He put his life and soul into it, didn't he? Away from the track, the bikes were prepared.
I don't think his house. I think his house is only just being finished because when he had time, he was working on the bikes. So many great memories that year. That was the NMT No Limits the track day company. They sponsored the team. Russo Racing Kawasaki won the championship, mega. And it was like, wow, okay, this could then be a career.
Where do we go?
Where do we go? And Kawasaki still was a heavy part of the backing for me. Went to Gearlink, to Supersport. Gearlink were having like an absolutely outstanding run at that point. It was Ben Wilson and Glenn Irwin. So like that year in Stock 600, it was me, won the championship, Taz Mack, obviously, Brad Ray, Joe Francis, Ben Curry. Like it was a stacked year. Super competitive and so much fun.
No, not Glenn. Billy McConnell and that. Then Mossy. They
this is super stock.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm talking super stock. Sorry, I went forward and come back. Super stock, and then obviously we all moved up, and Andy Irwin as well. We all moved up to Super Sport together, and again like Uber, like it was
stacked out again straight away.
Like you had the TTC bike with Joe Francis.
Yeah, good teams. Yeah,
I think Andy Reid may have been on it then. Obviously, like he's was hampered quite a lot with injuries. Taz was on the South Academy 600.
Yeah.
He obviously went on to win the championship. I was on the Gearlink bike.
Brad was on his own Fab Racing bike.
Yeah, which was Steve Bones as well.
And he still did quite a good job on that, didn't he? Yeah.
Great job, like for like in Supersport too.
Remember you three just battling hard.
Yeah, like literally taking lumps at each other. Like another really, really fun year. Andy Irwin came in to be my teammate about a third of the way of the year in. We had a good laugh because he's, what Andy's like. He's just loose, isn't he?
Yeah.
Puts his helmet on and he's just loose. Chrissy Rouse as well was in the class in stock and stuff like that. So we all sort of moved up together. And unfortunately, that year for myself, like we had like 8 DNFs. I think one of them was like a crash. So we had a lot of technicals. And yeah, it was a shame really because I feel like we could have been a lot more competitive. But at the end of the day, like you'll know what it's like. You sign a contract for the year, and that's I like to think. You don't
know what's going to come either, do you?
You don't know what's going to come, and like in fairness, like I crashed, and I might have crashed in non-point scoring rate, like qualifying and stuff.
Yeah.
You can't F and Jeff. Like the team don't F and Jeff for you when you do that. It's a team thing, and we did okay. I think we could have done a lot better. But then obviously went to Stock 1000. Like every year was like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, straight in. You didn't really stay much in many.
No, I did 1 year in Stock 1000. And to be honest, I'm kind of at the time I was glad I did 1 year because the class did intimidate me. You were racing in it. We had Richard Cooper, Michael Rutter at the time, a little bit younger back then.
I think Hutchie was he even doing a couple of rounds now and again. I
don't know. It might have done. Memory's quite bad. James Rispoli.
Yeah.
Was when FS3 started up.
Oh yeah.
He was on their stock bike, and that was mega.
Yeah.
Like that was pucker. That was like I remember getting on. I actually did a test for Paul Russo at the end of the Supersport year because he was running a stock 6. Because I obviously rode for Paul stock 6, went Gearlink, and Paul was still running. And I first rode the ZX10 in Cartagena because he had a year of a lot of riders jumping off of it, like crashing, but also moving away because they didn't think the bike, how the geometry of it was worked.
Oh, it done me head. Oh, that's the first thing that he said to me, didn't they? Yeah, remember?
So
Kawasaki don't work.
No. So he asked me to come out to Cartagena. I absolutely fell in love with it. I was like, wow, like, I can see now. Like my first memory of going Cartagena was that time on the Aprilia Super 10. You were there on obviously your ZX10.
Yeah.
And Dan Linfoot was there, and it was on the Sorry Mate Honda. And I remember that thing coming out the final corner, like it had traction control and anti-wheelie back then. And like it was wheeling out the last corner. Yeah. And it was like, I felt like that then.
Yeah.
I was like, got on the Stock 1000. I was like, this is cool.
Bit of me, yeah.
Wanted to do it. Didn't end up working out a deal with Paul Russo in the end, which was a shame, but went to the South Connect team. That bike was brilliant. Like that was it was the first year of the new upgraded ZX10 RR. Like we still didn't have the benefit of being able to change the head angle, which was what everyone was moaning about. But the bike, the South guys had put a really, really good brand new.
No, the bikes
package.
were good, weren't it? Yeah,
that bike was great. New team environment for me. Like the first time now, like we're in a proper like they have a super bike in a garage, like hospitality awning, which I run out of. wow. Like, and went to progressed quite quickly actually through that. I think the first round I looked like 7th or 5th and 7th, but it was also the year of
Yeah, but that's still strong though, really.
Yeah, and that was the year of the endurance racing. I don't know if you
Oh,
remember.
I love that. Yeah, that was literally,
The 50 miler, was it?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the first round at Donington, weren't it? It was the double race. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
But like
I won it.
Yeah, I didn't. But that I remember you always saying like stock 1,000. You always thought, you know, it's stock 1,000. Like you're working your way up. But I remember you always saying you took for granted how stock 1,000 superbike riders were in.
Yeah, well, I had already gone up at that point and come back down.
You were yo-yoing.
So I won the stock 1,000 in 14, and that was 17, wasn't it? I come back to it. So I went superbike for 2 years, come back to stock 1,000 because it kind of rekindled my career anyway. But yeah, but then obviously you was coming through, so it was quite a good like mix of like either going up or you can come back down, and obviously.
And it was weird as well because I'm now racing with a kid I used to play knockdown ginger with.
Yeah,
like it was just.
No, it's good though. I think you learnt a lot, didn't you? That year?
So much, and I was very fortunate because obviously you would help me. Like never was set up because we're so different the way we set bikes up or anything like that. But like if it would be like a bit of a toe in a qualifying session or something like that, like you, in fairness, you were always there for me. And then Alton Park, we had a really drizzly race, and I decided to stay on the dries.
Oh, I remember that race now. Yeah.
I think you got Did you get taken out in that race?
Don't know. I had a problem with the bike. You know, I pulled out the race because of the front. Something to do with the front end.
Oh no, it was the front tyre.
Yeah.
So a lot of people went wets, but it was drizzling.
Yeah.
And I think you pulled out because you had a problem with the front
I had
spindle.
something with a spring or a tyre or suspension.
And I stayed on dries.
Yeah.
Very like one of very few that did. I think me and Rispoli did.
Yeah, and I watched Rispoli crash at the last turn.
The last turn, I was right behind him.
I got back to the motorhome. As I literally walked to the motorhome, I heard.
Yeah, and I was literally right behind.
Rispoli.
And we're about half race distance. Yeah. So like won the race, and it was like, oh my god.
Did you win it?
Yeah, I won it.
Yeah, that's mental. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Won the race, and that was cool. That was like Alton Park, top step of the podium. Alton Park as well, like a track I never really say I'd liked. But I always tend to do well. Like I got the lap record on the stock 600. I think it might even still be there.
What tyres did you have?
I had dries, so I stayed dries. The curly cut slicks, the dries, and it was a proper gamble. And to be honest with you, it was more my peace of mind of like, well, everyone's faffing about. Like, look, it could have gone either way. Like, look at Jack Miller in MotoGP. Like, it's kind of one of them calls. When you make it and it works, you're a hero.
You've got to make it, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, and keep the heat in them and stuff like that. So we did that, and great, won the race. And then like Snetterton, I remember battling. That was the endurance race. It was Cooper was leading, I was second, you, and then Rutter. I think. Yeah. Cooper started running out of fuel, or pretty much did run out of fuel. I think. Yeah. My bike started to surge, like because it was the first year of it, wasn't it?
It was literally emptied, and it was because it was Snetterton and it was so wide open everywhere.
Yeah, and like hot.
No one knew about the fuel consumption, did they?
No, and I remember like my bike started to surge, so I'm like starting to roll off, and you come past. I was like, I don't believe it.
This is mega. I remember.
The best thing about that race, okay, you won it.
I ran out of fuel on the in-nap.
Yeah,
my bike was going.
The best thing about that, obviously, not great. Like I was leading the race, didn't win it. You won it, got second. But I remember coming in, and you were like, God, you were pushing on.
Yeah,
and you was like,
yeah, because I was pushing, I was doing some rapid lap times, and I couldn't catch her.
No,
so you was like, I was gaining like small amounts on you, and I was like, fuck me, you're pushing on,
and then, you like obviously you won the race. I think we was walking back down the pit lane, you was going back to your garage, and your mum was there, and that was when we was having that conversation, and you was like, oh yeah, you was pushing on, and your mum was like, yeah, he's got the lap record. And I was like, I was like, oh well,
claim to fame,
bit of a scalp.
Yeah, I won the race, but you won the Yeah, but you won the battle, I won the war.
Yeah, and like that was great. Like,
no, that was good.
Stock 1,000 was good, and I'd like, if there was ever a series I'd like to go back into, obviously like to go like get a proper opportunity in Superbike, but Stock 1,000 again, I'd like to do that
because it's still it's mad competitive. Every year it's competitive.
Yeah, and I
don't think there's been a year it ain't.
Yeah. No, and I went straight to Superbike, and with the same team, and it was glamorous. It looked good. It weren't a good. At that point, Tommy Bridewell had been on the bike and did nothing on it. So to me, I'm not slagging people off, but at the end of the day, at that point, that bike weren't competitive. No, and it's something I don't want to do. Like in here, like I'd never speak badly. No, it didn't work.
No, it didn't work.
It didn't work.
It didn't suit you that year, did it? If you'd have been better staying in stock foul that year in hindsight, wouldn't you?
Like so many, there's so many variables to go fast.
Always,
crew, machinery, backup, support, bike. What products, especially Superbike.
So much can go into it,
especially
and so much can go wrong.
Yeah, so much can go wrong, and in hindsight, it wasn't in hindsight it wasn't the best move for me to do.
But you made the move, and you had a go, and that's it. Yeah, you took the gamble.
And in fairness, I did a year in Superbike. That was pretty cool. Yeah, results weren't great, and injured myself.
Oh mate, Alton Park, that was a big crash. Cavill Park
Yeah.
Turn 1 was a big crash. I remember seeing that as I was coming into the chicane
Alton
thinking, oh,
Park was really big. Jacob Schmertz at the time was racing. He'd crashed at Ireland, flicked a load of grass through the fence.
over the other side.
It was when it weren't so well protected, and I come through out the shallow oils through the fast right, and the front just went.
Boom.
I think I was like fifth in. It was like free practice 1.
Yeah, you
And
done well at
literally
that point.
Superbike, and I think I was like fifth. We like nearing the end of the session. It was like a proper like I'd turned up that weekend. The bike, the team had got the bike
Pushing
working
on again at
good.
Alton Park.
Literally through Alton Park, another one I didn't like, but tended
Yeah.
to go well at. Come out of Ireland Men's, come through the fast right, and the front just went boom. And when I say the bike looked like someone like a butcher had taken a
At
cleave
Shell, weren't it? You can't. Yeah, the right
that
hander after
chicane.
Shell. Yeah,
into that
that's
chicane.
so fast through there.
Oh mate, and that was like that hurt
I
as
think it's
well.
like fourth gear flat, pretty much.
Yeah, literally as I touched the brake,
Oh.
there was like debris across
I
the
just
track.
remember coming around, mate, and it looked like a plane had crashed. There was literally bits of bike everywhere. There was debris just everywhere. There was grass. There was mud. There was
Yeah.
a bike over here. There was you over here. There was a bit of your front over there.
Yeah, the whole front end of the bike had snapped off. It was over there, and
I was
we're
like,
talking
oh,
like
me son.
Superbike Olins.
I know, yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh.
like not cheap.
How's the damage to the bike? Yeah, not great, mate. Because that's
Yeah.
what the team always say. Did you pick it up? No, I wasn't picking that up.
Nah, well, I was in the med centre. I'd actually hurt myself because I'd basically the way I'd slid, I'd boshed over the sausage curbs. So I was like,
Oh, they
to
hurt.
curb,
Yeah.
like on my back, and I was like, oh, like no airbags back then.
No,
I think Alpine Star had bought the airbag, but no, like
not. I may not even been then.
no.
Don't know what they're. Maybe 18, 19 was their first year.
Well,
Maybe.
this was 18.
Yeah, it might
so,
have been then. Yeah.
But yeah, I had no airbag.
No.
And like hurt myself. But yeah, and then we did sort of. Yeah, like it was good. I'm glad I'd done it and got the experience of the garage and like the superbike rider, like signatures. Like, why do people want my signature?
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, why do you want my signature? It's like it's me. Like, how strange. I still find it strange now. Genuinely,
Yeah.
I don't mean it in like an arrogant way. Like, definitely not in an arrogant way.
No,
the
but it's
opposite,
just like we're human people, aren't we?
yeah. Like, what do you want like a squiggle on paper for? Like,
But in like the motorcycle racing world, it's quite a small community, and people love it, and they want obviously the autograph and stuff. And in the normal world, it's actually quite refreshing because in the normal world, you don't really get bothered that much. I mean, if locally we see people we know, but it's quite mad, isn't it? And then obviously you started figuring out at that point that if I can't really earn any money out of it, like what the hell's going to be the point? Like, because at that point I was earning money, weren't I? And it was like we was kind of like. I say to you, if it ain't a job, like it's an expensive hobby, innit? And we soon was like that, weren't we, with the sport?
yeah, and at that point as well, I was like, Dad had done a lot of investing, so obviously 250 cut, like 3-4 years in stock.
And
600.
it's so much money.
And which I
It's
didn't know.
thousands,
Super
isn't it?
Sport
Yeah.
we had to pay for, Super Stock we had to pay for, and it was like, well, I don't want Dad to pay anymore. I don't want it to be like this. And I was finding it tough because, especially the Superbike year, I was having meetings with like big blue chip companies trying to get them to sponsor me and the team, and it just consumed me like you wouldn't believe. Like I'm going to places thinking like corporate opportunities, and I should be thinking about racing bikes.
Like, our dads wouldn't ask for money because our dads didn't know the sponsorship route, did they? It was just like, well, we'll pay for it. That's how you got
and
to get
again,
free, pay for it.
a bit like didn't like if it wasn't a profession, it was a hobby, as you said. And didn't want people to pay for my hobby.
Yeah.
They've got their own kids. They've got their own
businesses,
families.
yeah.
Like they can or themselves.
Yeah.
They can pay for their own hobbies. Like I didn't want to be hounding people. Like we used to talk about it all the time, and like be riders that like, oh yeah, I'm really really skint, blah blah blah. Next picture, they're on holiday,
Yeah.
and it's like, well,
Hang on, mate. You saying you skint last week? Yeah.
like, I didn't want that.
Don't beg for it. Yeah.
No.
I mean, obviously now it's a bit different because like we look at like commercial opportunities, don't we, for businesses and how they can. I think having our own business, we understand
100%, and
how it all works.
There's definitely a benefit to like advertising,
Yeah.
not sponsorship, like
no
advertising. Within superbikes and stuff like that, because basically you're a rolling billboard.
Yeah.
Literally, that's what you are, isn't it? And obviously, the more money the companies put in, the bigger the branding they get. Trucks, full bike liveries, full
Whatever
team
it is.
sponsorship,
Yeah.
Completely different conversation. But it was like I didn't want to do that anymore. Like I was fed up with people calling this a profession. Like in my opinion, you're a professional when you get paid.
When you get paid.
Yeah, like, and there's far too many people, in my opinion, that call themselves professional.
100%.
Like, I'm no longer a professional bike racer.
No.
I'm not. I'm at the minute, genuinely, I'm
Not a bike racer.
office interiors. I'm not even a bike racer.
Interior designer, I'd call you. Slash admin.
Admin boy,
Slash-
accountant,
Yeah.
like everything. Weight carrier of Danny Buchcan.
No, definitely not that.
But no, and I honestly, I had some great opportunities. So like, again, going back, like the World Supersport entrant, the rider for, it was Intermoto Kawasaki.
Which was a sick team at the time. Florian
So
Marino
good.
was leading the championship, I think, weren't he? Or
I
was
don't
he
know. Yeah,
top
like
three?
well, we had like the team had Florian Marino, PJ Jacobson, who turned out to be a real good
Yeah.
pal, and a guy called Tony Cavina. And because I had won the Stock 600 Championship, Andrew Pitt was working for the team at the time.
Andrew
with
Pitt,
PJ and like Florian. I think he was Florian at the time. He said, come out to Jerez. So me and Dad flew out. He said, we'll get you a test on the bike. It'd be like literally a session. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. So I went out and rode a proper full super sport.
The smell of the race fuel and that.
Race fuel, traction control back then.
600.
Yeah, and like literally did that. And that was like the end of the Stock 600 year. That was the beginning of the Stock 600 year, because at the end of the
because it's Qatar round 1.
No, tell a lie.
End.
It was the end of the Stock
Qatar.
600 year.
Yeah.
And of 2000 and end of the Stock 600 year 2014.
Yeah.
I went and done Magny-Cours. So I got called up.
Magny-Cours?
I got called up.
My French.
Andrew spoke to Dad and was like, look, there's an opportunity here. The Dutch rider as it's not working. Yeah. They had 3 bikes. We need to run 3 bikes, big sponsors. Do you think you'd be up for it? Cool. Yeah, I'm like we had to pay for it.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first conversations. My dad was like, look, we've got to contribute here. Like, do you want to do it? And even Andrew was a bit like, I'm not sure if you're ready, because they say this was 2014. So this was the year prior to the Stock
much
600
experience,
Championship.
yeah.
No. I got like 1 or 2 podiums, or 3 maybe in Stock 600. And it was like, but I've always been the sort of person, like the more pressure I'm under, the better I do.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm a bit lax when I don't have pressure. Whether it be like end of year accounts, like, right, we've got tomorrow, like, bosh, get it done.
Whatever it is.
Like, obviously that's life now. But it was, so I did do it. So I went to Magny-Cours, done it, qualified, not too bad. I got hindered because the previous rider, back then you could have 8 engines and they had to be sealed, and the previous rider was so heavy-footed, he was doing gearboxes like you wouldn't believe. And unfortunately in qualifying, the gearbox went on me, so we had to change gearbox. So qualified, not too bad. Had to start from pit lane, because even though I was a replacement rider, I wasn't a wild card, so I had to take that engine allocation with me. Started from pit lane, quite fortunate, because it was like heat wave, and then like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, absolutely hammered it down with rain. Fortunately, starting from pit lane, where I was on the grid, massive pile up at turn 1.
See you later.
So yeah,
right
literally
round.
like right out pit lane, I was like, oh okay, like whoops.
What are you all doing down there?
Yeah, and I think I got. So I think it might have only been the one race then back then. I think it was.
No, it was, yeah.
And I got 12.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow.
3 points.
Yeah,
Gosh.
like World Championship, 3 points. Like, I was not old, like coming through my career, like this is cool. Got asked to come to Qatar. Wow, like what an experience that was, riding at night. Like the team organising flights, the team organising hotel. You know, me and PJ, like I said, become quite close. Like my dad was flying out with me as well. But like, because we were racing at night, our whole day had to shift. So we had to wake up and have lunch. Like pasta and peas and vegetables for lunch, like weird. For like, which was breakfast.
Yeah.
And then like after we'd do the sessions, me and PJ would go back. And I just remember going back and we had like Nespresso coffee machines in the room. Like, and Andrew had massively got me onto coffee, living in Italy and going out there and visiting him. Me and PJ come back, we'd have a coffee.
He got me into coffee.
And then we'd go out. We'd go out in like the old town of Qatar, and we'd be walking around, and then we'd have like cereal for dinner. Like it was proper like
weird,
surreal.
yeah.
But like what an experience again to go to Qatar, end of 2014. Ride a proper World Supersport bike. Like Vandermark won the championship.
Sofoglu would have probably been there.
Sofoglu was in it. And I remember Sofoglu coming past me for the first time in Qatar. And he come past, and I just remember this lighting up. But obviously it was the excess fuel coming out the exhaust.
And
So
the
it was
smell of the race fuel just used to be mega, didn't it?
He was mega though, right? Considering I was some absolute nobody, yeah? The Keenan past me was so much grace. But everyone was. Like, they were all professionals. Like, I wasn't Stock 600 anymore, like literally like trying to take the front wheel off each other.
No,
it was like, wow, like this is how they behave here. And even like walking around the paddock, like Jack Kennedy was in the championship at the time. And I didn't really, Jack Kennedy.
Yeah.
I knew him from saying hello in the paddock, but like there was so much
because you're
camaraderie.
British. It's like, oh, you're right, you're British.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jack's Irish, but
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you're from BSB. Oh, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
And instantly you've got that connection, and you sort of talk, yeah.
And like PJ and Florian had their connections as well. Like, so you'd end up having conversation because like Qatar, you were there, you had a cabin like they do at GP and like World Championship now, where you don't obviously have lorries there, they're flyaways, so you've got like an air conditioning cabin. But I remember turning up from Magny-Cours to Qatar, and it rained obviously at Magny-Cours, and got the levers out of the flight case. They were covered in mould. Like, so
Oh,
bad. I
yeah,
had
so
one
it's
suit.
wet and then they get hot and
RST
I've
rushed
had
together to
that.
get me a suit. I had one suit.
I had that in my inside of my crash short.
Oh, it was like the suit was green because it was Kawasaki green, but like the black stretch paneling was green. It was disgusting.
I'm actually waiting to go to Knock Hill and find my crash helmet from the test day there with all fur in it and just be like to Shoei, can you sort this out, please?
Yeah.
Because
You were fortunate that
I've got a dirty helmet.
Yeah, the sport backing. But yeah, like, so I've had some serious experiences, and then obviously, as you said, it was like, if this isn't gonna be a profession for me, it's too dangerous. Like, I've always said I'm very fortunate. I've got such a nice life away from bike racing. I love riding bikes. That is the be all and end all for it for me. I love riding bikes, and to be paid to do it, it's just unreal.
We had this conversation the other day, didn't we?
Yeah.
And it's like, like we're quite fortunate that away from the track we have got quite very good lives. We've got obviously the business.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to we're gonna have to rush through the business bit. We're getting on a bit with the old time, but obviously, we've got the business, haven't we? Victory Workspace Consultants.
Yeah, and that started when I had finished racing, hadn't it? So I did a year at Superbike, kind of set my stalls as like, if someone wants me, they want me. Like, so did the GP2 bit with the Quattraplant team, which the relationships continue till today.
Yeah, mega, yeah.
And one races, Kyle was on the Calex, like we had a barn build, Triumph, like, not to disrespect it because it wasn't. It was
no, but at that time you'd come in halfway through the championship.
Well, it wasn't a Grand Prix bike. It hadn't come from the Grand Prix paddock. And we built that and won races against Carl.
Yeah.
We come in like halfway through the year, and then like went on to do the Spirit thing. Won the GP2 championship with the Spirit. That was a serious like barn project, derived from the FTR. Steve Bones, Rod McDonough, the Spirit guys managed to bring Paul Neal, my mechanic, along. Like we had a good crack. 2 years of that, and then did a little bit last year. Really a little bit on the did a little bit in Spain. So the ESBK championship.
Oh yeah.
So did like Valencia and Estoril, which was great experience again. And it was good because again, like the teams, like they were taking me on for my worth.
Yeah.
To try and develop it. My first experience on an R6 bike was good. But we had started the business, hadn't we?
Yeah.
So I was you was racing Superbike, and obviously I was concentrating, and it was like
I'd started a business and didn't really know what I was doing. Just sort of was like, I've got this idea here.
Yeah, you literally said to me, didn't you? He's like, I've got an idea, and I was like, and like
I've already named it.
We always threw ideas about it, didn't we? And it was like 4 weeks gone by, and I was like, what was that idea again? And you were like,
let's go Starbucks.
Meet me at Starbucks on the A127, and literally sat there, didn't we? Set it up there. And
I showed you the logo. I was like, look at the logo, didn't I? And
Yeah.
he's like, what have we called it? And I was like, Victory Workspace. And I always said victory because of winning and victorious and
Yeah, so Victory Workspace Consultants was formed.
Yeah.
Literally there and then in Starbucks, like loads of single espressos.
Us brew drinking cappuccinos.
Company's house set up.
Yeah.
Our accountant selected. Like that was all set up.
Yeah.
And we won our first job in London, didn't we?
Yeah.
Which was quite
Let's
fun.
target Essex. All right, your first job, London. All right.
Yeah,
Right,
and
we'll
we
go
were-
London him.
And it was like literally a huge job, like we took for granted, didn't we?
Yeah.
And it was like, like like if you want guys, that we'll pay a deposit. And we was like, yeah, like didn't have a
Do
bank
we need a
account.
deposit? Yeah.
Or we just got a bank account or something like that. We literally went to
I was
whatever
waiting
branch.
for it. Yeah.
And we didn't have a VAT number, did we?
No, I was waiting for it all to still
So,
come
like,
back through.
Proper winging it. And that's the future now, isn't it? And
4
we
years
always said
old
that.
now.
Yeah, is it? Yeah.
3 years old, 4 years old, one of the two.
4.
Yeah, 18. Yeah.
19.
20, 21, 22.
No, it was set
Was
up
it
in 19.
19, was
set
up
it? Because I was riding for the Quattraplant
Yeah, okay,
team.
yeah. So, yeah, I
'Cause
thought it was 4 years old.
It was my first experience of the team was so good with me,
Yeah.
that Quattraplant team, that I had so much flexibility. So like I could be at race weekends on my laptop, and they were like, because they knew I was concentrating. Like I'm not one of them that switches off. Like I was there to race, but they were really supporting me with the business as well. They were like, "Oh mate, yeah, like cool, like this is
Yeah,
mega."
we had to do what we had to do.
Yeah.
I remember turning up to a race meeting and going out for free practice. And before it, I remember having to send that quote that we'd discussed.
Yeah.
And I remember going out and being second in the session. It didn't affect me at all.
No.
Like it was like
Some people get funny about it, don't
some
they?
people get funny about it, but for me, it made me like switch on more when I was at racing because it took me so far away from it when I was away from
Gives
the
you
track.
another
It does
focus.
to this day.
How many times like have we gone into a season and racing has been the be all and end all, and you get so wrapped up in it?
Yeah, and it's shit, and it just does nothing for your mindset. You end up just overcooking yourself and then falling out of love with racing. Whereas now, we kind of look at racing like, it's not a privilege, it's a job still. But it's like you go to racing, it's like, right, when I'm there Thursday till Sunday, I'll give 100%. When I'm not there, I'll give 100% still. I obviously still train and things, and we have to keep
and
fit,
like,
but...
And I would always still struggle on a Monday, like the
Yeah.
massive come down, like that adrenaline rush of being racing. Like,
yeah.
I've never ever done drugs. It's really not an interest of mine. Like, okay, I don't mind like a couple of glasses of wine or a few beers, like,
Yeah.
but obviously not when you're racing.
No,
like,
exactly, yeah.
that
But
doesn't
over,
cost-
on a free
but
weekend...
that natural buzz, like is what people that have done both compare.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like Mondays used to be rough, like as in like slow, like unless you had a big project on, it was like slow. But
Still, that's why I was late yesterday.
yeah, no,
No, you was late yesterday, but you did miss your alarm.
Did miss my alarm.
Pissed me off, actually.
That's the first time I've ever done that.
Yeah, it is.
Literally woke up and I was like, that's bright out there. Like 4:50 my alarm, and I was like,
Me and my driveway at 5 o'clock.
yeah. And I was like, that's bright. It was like 20 past 5. I was like, oh. And I would never have answered like that alarm. It was just that so lucky I'd woke up.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, no. So like Victory was formed, and that's obviously my press at the minute. Like I'm still interested in racing. I think that's quite important to say.
Yeah,
because
yeah, but you're not jumping at any opportunity.
No.
Any shit opportunity.
I've had
that
opportunities.
comes. Yeah.
I've had people
Yeah.
message and like, no disrespect, but like the package wasn't right or like
No.
it wouldn't do anything for me. And in fairness, like I probably make it clear, like I said in an interview, I think it was 2 years ago, it was like the last race at Brands, I won the race. And I said to Rage Stringer at the time, I was like, look, this is looking like it's going to be my last race. To be fair, it really took me by surprise because I got a little bit emotional about it. And what I meant by that was not that I want to retire. It was like, because a few people have said, well, yeah, but you said you were retiring. It's like, well, no, like I tried so hard prior to that interview, like for the months, like weeks leading up to it, to find something. And unfortunately, I kept getting kiboshed by people that were coming in and other riders that were going, oh, well, you know, well, don't pay a salary. I've got a sponsor, Bosch. And it's like an amount of times, I can't tell you, and it still happens to this
I've got
day.
50 grand sponsor, I've got 100 grand sponsor, I've got this, I've got that.
How much does it happen?
Yeah, yeah.
And it is frustrating. It is always been around.
And it will
It's
continue.
more prevalent now.
Yeah.
And obviously people are now not being paid. They're either doing it free or they're paying to be there.
Just because of people are coming in and doing a good job on bikes, but they're paying to be there.
Well, the problem is then, and I don't want to go down this route because, we can talk about it and be very negative, but the problem you have then is mediocre riders get good bikes, do okay.
Yeah.
Get good, and the occasional good result. Good riders get on mediocre bikes, don't do anything, career goes.
Yeah. And that's because they literally stand by, right, I'm going to be paid, I should be paid, this is my job.
And not even from an ego point of view,
Yeah.
but like genuinely might not have the sponsors.
No, exactly,
Like, my opinion was my dad done the investing. Like he put a lot of money into the sport, like when we started. And I didn't want my dad to pay anymore. I wanted to bring him along as a dad and just be a dad again, which I did for a period of time. And yeah, I'm still very fortunate. Like I've got companies like Chimera Performance, who are a sponsor of mine, Quattro Plant.
Chimera is where we are now.
Chimera is where we are now. And they've been fantastic. And they took me on and they sponsored me last year for obviously the rounds that I did sporadically. And I've still got a big interest in being back racing again. I love riding my bike.
You're kind of ready to go. You just got to wait for the right opportunity.
Ready to go. But like the right opportunity. And the problem is like, as far as stock value goes, having not ridden yet, you're weaned down. And I feel like if I got on a good bike, I know I can still do a good job. But it is getting over that barrier, isn't it, of someone taking a sponsor. Like I want to be a rider, not a sponsor, and a rider.
Yeah, you want to just show up, mate, do a job, race your bike and go home. Do a good job for the team, do a good job. Obviously, teams have got sponsors, investments, blah, 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 blah. And you want to do a good job and you still feel like you can. Yeah. Because obviously you're not even 30.
No, 27. The years are creeping up. I know. Although I'm getting grey hairs. Like Alicia, my girlfriend, is actually genuinely, like, she started to pluck out the grey hairs.
Stressing me. That's because I'm stressing you out.
She doesn't anymore because there's a fair few. But I go grey. Doesn't bother me.
I'm not going grey.
Wow.
Mate, we are running out of time here. I'm going to have to literally get you back and have a more of a chat because I've got some questions on it, but we are going to run out. So I am going to have to bring in the Buchcan's Bonanza. This is the quiz.
Okay.
This is 5 heavily thought out questions. Right. Sometimes I don't have the answers to them because I actually forget to put the answers in, which you obviously would know that does sound like me. So the first question of Buchcan's Bonanza quiz, we need to get a tune for that. We need to get a tune for
Can you not just do
Buchcan's Bonanza? Like something like that. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to start off quite easy. What number is Miguel Oliveira? If you don't know this, mate, this is an absolute shit show because, come on, mate, it's Miguel Oliveira.
Why can't I think of it? There's an 8 in there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's an 8. Definitely is.
88?
88,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
Boom.
Same as Andrew Pitt.
Boom. How many kilometres is Spa-Francorchamps?
I have no idea. I'm not even going to try.
One time I said to Mason, I'm going to... This is his naivety to racing and life. When I first got a girlfriend... my first serious relationship was with my wife, my now wife,
I never
Steph.
thought was ever going to happen.
No, exactly. And I remember walking through Lakeside, I'm off to the spa this weekend. You're not, what, Spa-Francorchamps? Like that.
I was like, that's meant to be a great track.
I'm off to the spa. Anyway...
I lost my friend that day.
You did. Yeah, now look at me. How many kilometres is Spa-Francorchamps? Have a guess.
Okay, I'll say...
It's quite a long circuit.
Yeah.
You remember the lap we did on the
5?
7 kilometres.
Right.
How big is an 8-person meeting table?
No, it's 2.7 meters.
No, it's not.
Why
I looked
isn't it?
online yesterday. It says the average desk size is for how it should be. It's actual 3 meters by 1.2 wide.
That's really boring.
No, you're a desk man, mate. That's what it is. I can't.
Literally
I
installed.
can't polish a turd, mate. It's office
I
furniture.
literally installed an 8-person meeting table yesterday,
Yes,
which was
and it was
2.7.
They had 6 chairs. Anyway, how many points did the BSB showdown start at when they went into it?
Was it 500?
No,
1,000?
1,000.
I thought it was
Plus
500.
podium credits.
Right.
So you failed that one.
But is that genuinely like?
That is 1,000 points. Yeah.
Because you've done your research.
Yeah. Oh well, I've been in it a few times. And
Yeah, but you've also not been in it for a few times.
how many years? This is quite a hard one actually. I wouldn't have been able to tell you this, but how many years did Haga do BSB for? Noriyuki Haga.
Oh, I don't know because again, going back to like my heroes.
We
back
didn't know,
then,
did we?
No,
No.
like I didn't know Noriyuki Haga.
Well, do you want to have a guess?
Well, I know obviously he was in it the year with Rapid Solicitors.
Yeah.
On the PBM
Oh
bike.
yeah.
So that was, I'd say 4.
2. 2012, 2013.
Okay.
Boom! They were quite good questions actually. It's really hard actually because the more podcasts we get, the more harder these questions are going to get to ask. But
Well,
anyway,
how
we've
many did I even get then?
yeah, I don't even
Did
know.
they get
mate.
one?
We'll have to ask producer man Ben.
2,
Producer man Ben.
1.5.
You need your own Instagram account for that. Mate, we are going to have to shoot though because we have got to go and talk about some office furniture.
We've actually got a meeting, haven't we?
We've actually got a meeting 1 minute ago it started. Shit! Gotta go, guys. I feel like we're probably going to have to get you back anyway and like we've still got a few other things I need
Chew
to
the
talk to
fat
you
a bit
about.
more.
Yeah, chew the fat a bit more. Maybe just talk to you about life outside racing.
Yeah.
Well, we've already done a bit of that. But thanks for coming in. We're going to go and that's why you're all smart there, innit? This is
Yeah.
me smart. This is Mason smart. So I feel a bit underdressed now.
Yeah, we're actually like trying to put money in the bank right now.
Yeah, right now. Yeah, we need it.
Not turn up looking like a couple of thugs.
Yeah,
I'm literally staring at your top right now. Even though your top's actually worth more money than my shirt. But
Swagger
yeah.
Don, mate. Swagger Don Dan, they call
Yeah.
me. Oh, shit. Oh, God. Being text now. Right, guys, thank you for listening to this episode of Pushing It Podcast. Mason, thanks for coming on. You've been hounding me since day one of this podcast to get on, and now I've finally done it.
That's a lie. Do you know what? I feel really bad because I haven't actually watched any of these.
No,
so
it's all right. You're going to watch them all now. You're
I
gonna go
hope
back
I haven't
20
bored
episodes.
everyone.
20 episodes.
20
This is the
episodes,
20th.
right. I used to be number 20 at one point. as
Well, this is 20th
It's
episode. Right, we're going. Peace out, guys. Make sure you check the socials. Keep an eye on what's going on. Pushing the Limit Podcast. Bye. No, I think you had a little gun finger.
Boom. Danny Buchcan. What a ride this is.